Follow along for a 15-minute quick warm-up. This is the warm-up that I usually do before my pole dancing sessions, just a full body warm-up starting with some cardios. I like to do jumping jacks and squats. When you're doing your squats, make sure to put your weights on your heels and squat all the way down, full range of motion. At the end, you can stay there for a little bit, just wiggle out your hips and then making sure that your hip joints are loose. From here, put your hands on the floor and start extending the legs, straightening the knees. Think about spreading your butt cheeks open and really keep that back straight. You will feel hamstring being stretched a little bit. If this is really intense for you, you can keep a micro bend on the knees. From here, we'll walk to a high plank. Options to do shoulder shrugs or a quick push-up. Repeat a few times until you feel like your full body is getting a little more warm. Reach your hands at the top towards the ceiling and then slowly come down and repeat. Do 5 or 6 until you feel good. I like to rotate my shoulders back in little circles and then forward. If you've been sitting or typing the whole day, you may feel like your shoulders are very tight and you may hear some cracks, so totally normal. And then let's move on to the neck. I like to first just make sure that I can go up and down, left and right towards all directions. After that, do some circles from the right to the left, and then switch direction from left to the right. From here, use your hands to assist. Bring your hand onto your ear and think about right ear touching the right shoulder while pressing down through the left hand. From here, you can look up to the ceiling and look down onto the floor. Switch to the other side and now think about left ear towards the left shoulder. Repeat the same thing by looking up and looking down. Just give your neck a few different angles to stretch. Stay there for longer if you need that extra stretch. Now we're gonna come back to our high plank and then just do a few shoulder shrugs. I like to do some stabilizing and conditioning exercise right after a stretch. Push back into a downward dog and start pedaling out the feet, straightening the knee one at a time, rotate the hips a little bit, come onto my tippy toes, and then here we go, my favorite exercise. I am kicking one leg while the other leg being on my tippy toes and pushing off the floor. This, I really feel like my glute is firing up as well as my standing leg hamstring is getting a better stretch. After that, I will rotate my leg into really big circles and make sure to do both directions. Do 4 to 8 depending on how you feel. For the extra stretch, I like to lower down my arm to my forearm and then kick the opposite leg up, and you can start opening up your hips. Now everything on the other side. Start by kicking while lifting through the tippy toes. After 8 reps, we are going to do big circles with our top leg. Again, we're still warming up that hip. Circle to the other side. You can stay on tippy toes or you can put your heels all the way down on the standing leg. Keep the top leg up, start opening your hip and kick your butt with your foot. The other forearm will go down to the mat. I usually need a little break after this because it is a pretty intense exercise. Because we've been pushing our shoulders for a little, I am doing more full body arch and rounding exercise while I'm coming down. From here, I'm going to move on to the side body or torso stretch. I put my right hand on my right leg and then straightening and lengthening the arm to the other side. Do a few to repeat. Continue to draw bigger circles with the arms. Right hand on the right thigh or right knee and start circling back the left arm. Really focus on going to the back instead of just onto the side. I will do 5 or 6 in each direction until I feel like my shoulder is loose, my side body is lengthened. I also like to lift with both of my arms up and out, and then I will go down an inch and up an inch if I feel like I need a extra torso or oblique stretch. Now it's time to do the other side. Left hand on the left thigh or shin or knee, depending on how you feel. Totally feel free to microbend your knees if you need it. It is not a hamstring stretch here. We're more focusing on pushing the hip to one side and then we're leaning our body towards the other side. We're rotating the shoulder one direction and the other. Lift both hands up and then we're just gonna use our obliques to control ourselves to go up an inch and down an inch. I come down to a wide angle stretch and then I will bring both of my hands on my right foot, start opening up the right hand onto the sky, and start bending and straightening the left knee. Now both hands onto the left foot rather, start opening up my left arm towards the ceiling and then start bending the right leg. Bend and straighten, bend and straighten. From here, I rotate to a pyramid or triangle pose, and I'm just pushing up and down to kind of rotate between a hip flexor and quad stretch and a hamstring stretch. Come on down to a low lunge and start shining your chest open while putting your left hip flexor down, pointing towards the mat and getting as close as possible to the floor. From there, I actively lift up and I'm doing these micro movements by bending and straightening my back knee. This gives me a really great hip flexor warm-up, and I'm really using the hip flexor as well as the quad to support myself. Make sure your standing knee is not over your ankle and you're always keeping that 90 degree. From there, you can let go of your left knee onto the floor, start reaching your hand back, and then maybe grab the foot or put the foot closer to your hip. Come on down to a pigeon pose on the right leg. Really focus on parallel the shin to the top of the mat instead of keeping your foot close to your crotch. Make sure you're centering your hips, and you have the option to do a little back bend or come down for a deeper hip stretch. From there, we push back into a halfway split. I like to rotate my ankle or pointing and flexing them to floss off that nerve underneath my hamstring. Bring both hands onto the right side of your right leg for an even deeper stretch and stretching that side hamstring. Now it's time to do the other side. First, we're gonna push back into a downward dog. Inhale, lift your left leg and then bring yourself into a low lunge. You can shift your hip forward and back or even draw little circles. Here, I totally forgot to go back to the pyramid pose. Feel free to add that. And this time, we're going to bring our right hip flexor pointing down to the mat and lowering. Engage and start doing the micro bend on your right knee. Really push that hip flexor and lock that knee at the top. From there, we're going to open up our left knee. You can push a little bit with your hand. Drop down your right knee, and then you can reach your left hand up and back to grab the foot. You can pull the foot closer to your butt if that feels good. Then we're going to our pigeon pose on the other side. Still doing the same thing, focusing on centering the hip, and choose your option. This time I'm going to come down to give myself a deeper hip stretch. This feels really good after sitting in the office for a whole day. Here I'm just finishing up with the pyramid to low lunge transition since I missed that in the beginning. And then push back into a halfway lift. Really focus on straightening the back. If you feel like you're rounding your back a little bit, maybe lift yourself up, use blocks so you can have your hands being supported and still keep back straight. Move both of your hands towards the outside of your front leg for that deeper stretch. Now we're going to do a few cat and cow on our all fours. And really focus on your spine, not just your lower back, but the entire spine all the way to your neck. I like to do these rolling motion just to make sure that I feel really loose and smooth. Start rotating your hips and then do whatever feels good to you. Come back to a child pose and really focus on pushing through the hands and the shoulders instead of just relax. This will help with more shoulder engagement because we're warming up for a pole training session. We don't want to overly stretch. We still want everything to be stabilized. As I'm pushing, I'm also rounding and tucking my pelvis. The last few things that I like to do is a little bit of upper back engagement. So I'm doing a super slow cobra by reaching my fingertips really far away and then slowly come back. Here I'm imagining that I'm touching my butt with the back of my head. Of course, that's not achievable, but imagining that really helps with you engaging the neck and the upper back. I like to repeat at least 2, better 3 of these. Just really slow and feel like I can go a little bit deeper each time. Here I'm also pressing down through my thighs and trying to keep my hips on the mat as long as possible. Come back to a child's pose to reset. And then the final thing we're going to do is open up our shoulder onto a T shape. We're going to bring the right hand next to our right chest. Open up your hip and reach the foot to your hands. If you want an extra stretch, you can bring the right knee up, straightening the knee. And if you want to have some extra stretch, you can even open the other leg as well. Switch direction. Now this time left hand next to the left chest. Open up, left foot towards the right fingers. Start pointing your feet up to the ceiling, the other knee and foot up to the ceiling if you want. This is a pretty intense stretch, so take variations and start slow until you feel like your shoulders are handling the stretch. That concludes my warm-up. I usually do a little bit of wrist stretch as well, just so I can feel ready for the pole. Of course, if there's any really flexible tricks that I'm doing, I will focus a little bit more on those body parts, but I think this 15 minutes is a very good warm-up just for general pole training.